Hello and welcome to State Matters. I'm your host, Matt Muratore. My guest today is a graduate from Kent State University and has always wanted to be a librarian. In the late 1980s, she began working full-time at the Somerville Public Library, where she attended Simmons College and achieved her bachelor's degree in library and information science. In 1993, she came to Plymouth and was hired in the new library at that time as the circulation supervisor and spent the last several years as the assistant library director before becoming the library director for the town of Plymouth in January of 2016. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Harris.
Thank you for having
Jennifer,
me.
welcome.
Thank you.
You've been in the job for a year now.
I've been in the job for a year, a little bit over.
How's it going?
It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
I love it. I work a lot.
Yeah.
I'm there a lot. We do a lot of great things, programming specifically, but I love that library.
Yeah, I hear nothing but good things what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Dinah O'Brien, we got to mention Dinah was great. She was there a number of years, did a great job, and you worked under her for a lot of years. So
I learned a lot.
I'm sure you were like a sponge. You learned a lot from her.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot about budgeting. I learned about how important it is to be active at the state level, to be involved with state legislature.
Yeah, and she was, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure, yeah. So we always start our show of finding out who our guests are. So for those few people that may not know who you are, who is Jennifer Harris?
So let's see. I have been at the library, as we said, 24 years.
Now, were you there when it really first opened, or soon after?
It opened October 1991.
91, okay.
And I had been living in Somerville. I had to get my master's degree. It was my master's degree in library science. And so at the time I was married and we were living in Somerville, and the big dig was going to happen. And my husband at the time had a school in Quincy, and so we wanted to get on the South Shore. Yeah. And we had summered in Marshfield over the years. And so we knew we loved that area. And it took me a few years to get a full-time job as a circulation supervisor on the South Shore after I got my degree. But what I had really wanted to be was an assistant library director, because management is I feel very comfortable managing, making things happen, being able to say yes. That's what's going on now as the library director. People come to me and ask, can I do this program? Can I do that? The staff is coming and ask, can we expand our technology programming? And I get to say yes a lot. I find myself saying yes, and then maybe I've taken on too much, but I'd rather take on more than not. It's
funny you say that, because you run across a lot. We're public officials basically. We work for the public, but you find a lot of people that do work in the public that's not always the case. A lot of times it's easier just to say no. But you saying yes is kind of refreshing to hear. Kind of talk about your philosophy about that.
Well, I believe that there is some. I'm very organized. When we went to the full-time library director, the assistant library director position was eliminated temporarily until funding comes, I'm hoping. So we do ask for that. So I brought with me the programming, and there are budget lines. We are funded through our corporation for all our programming, children's, young adult, adults and seniors. So what we do is we kind of divide that up, and we had stuck to a very strict budgeting calendar, and I have found that I've been able to, through donations and through opening up how I fund things, be able to say yes more frequently.
Yeah,
and the staff loves it. I think the public, and I do a lot a lot.
Keeps it fresh, too.
I think what a lot of the response I'm getting from the public is they like seeing me there, and I'm part, like I run the Winter American Classics Book Club. So I'm actually reading, I just read The Great Gatsby, I'll be reading The Grapes of Wrath, I read The Sun Also Rises, so it's great for me. And I think they like seeing their librarian there.
Wow, you're reading all those books.
Yeah, I know.
I just recently read Green Eggs and Ham at the South Shore Head Start program for Read Across America Day. I thought that was a tough one.
Yeah, it's Dr. Seuss. Hey, try Moby Dick.
Yeah, I guess.
And then tell me.
Listen, I understand you're from Cleveland.
Cleveland, Ohio.
And you're a Cleveland fan.
I am a Cleveland Cavaliers fan in particular. The Cleveland Browns, it's tough. We love them, but it's tough. And then
so
the Indians.
So you're a Patriots fan then?
Actually, I'm not sure you want me on record
That's
on
okay.
this. You know, Bill Belichick had been a manager at the
That's
Cleveland
right,
Browns.
yeah, right.
And there was that period when they were moved to the Baltimore Ravens.
Right,
So
yeah,
those
yeah.
of us have long memories.
Yeah, yeah.
However, the Cleveland Indians this summer was some of the best baseball
Yep,
ever with
right.
the Chicago Cubs. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
very exciting. I
yeah.
am a sports fan. My
Yeah.
father, my brother.
Yeah.
It's a family. It's a
Yeah.
Harris family tradition.
Oh, that's
so,
great. That's
yeah.
great. Well, it's a great sports town, Cleveland,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Boston, of
yeah.
course, too. So what makes somebody wake up one day and say, I want to be a librarian?
It's interesting you ask that because I know from when I was 16 years old, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a librarian. And I think some of that is because my love of reading, which family.
Where'd you get that from? Yeah.
I think from my father's side of the family, and so I'd hide in my bedroom on Saturday mornings. And Nancy Drew, you know, mysteries are still my
Love Nancy
favorite.
Drew, yeah.
Read every Nancy Drew novel. And then when I was in high school, I went to work at my local library, University Heights, Cleveland Heights Public Library, and I was a page where you do all the shelving. So page work is it's wonderful. You stand in the shelves, you're looking at books, you're putting them in order, and it's something on the inside that you feel. So that's what I had wanted, and I went to Kent State. At the time, they told me not to be a librarian. They had a bachelor's program, not a master's. And they said, there's too many public librarians right now. This was in the early 70s. So my life took a different track. It's just funny. I ended up out west and then ended up back east. And
What'd you do out west?
Oh, it was my mountain days.
Ah.
So I feel like I did a little bit, I was a bookkeeper, I did a little bit of a retirement time in my 20s, and then I grew up when I came back here in my 30s.
Yeah.
And that's when I was working at Somerville, that's when I just decided this is the time.
Yeah. Wow,
And
that's great.
technology, I didn't grow up with computers.
Right.
Technology was just coming in the late 80s and the internet. So I was challenged.
Yeah, sure. Talk about your role as assistant director. How long were you assistant director for?
23 years.
All right, so you were there a long time as assistant director.
That's right.
So talk about the role of the assistant director versus the role of the director now, and what's your day kind of like?
So as the assistant library director, my specific duties were staffing, which we have a staff of close to 30 people.
Okay.
So you have to, as public, we have to be on desk, and so it's managing their vacation times and covering the desk. I also, and still do, order materials, so all the fiction collection since 1991 has been purchased by me with support from staff who add in, but fiction is developed, and then we stay on top of that, so there's that part. And audiobooks, audio CDs, that's in the 100s, which is psychology. That was my major. So I still do purchasing, but I do the fiction and the audiobooks. And then the programming, and that was something, I don't know how many in the community remember Lee Regan, but she was the head of reference. We loved her. She passed away a few years ago from cancer, but I carry within me her goal, which was to continue to have programming. She came to me because she knew I had experience from Somerville, and she said, we have to do adult programming. And so that, it kind of gave birth in 1993.
So talk about the adult program. What is that specifically?
So programming to me, I believe we're a cultural center within the community, as well as family literacy, where you're learning to read and have opportunity to read all the way until your elder years. But adult programming is to attract music. In Cleveland, I grew up, I went to the Cleveland Orchestra. I have a love of opera. We bring poets. We do National Poetry Month is April. We bring authors. We like to bring someone special, usually for our annual meeting, and we do a local author readathon. But I go to this New England Crime Bake annually, and I try and bring different authors. So any of our summer programming, we've tried to integrate authors to come and speak. And then you have technology, then you have all the other stuff. You have career planning. We do something called Money Smart Week. That's also in April. That's American Library Association supported. And so we try and educate people about identity theft and how to manage their accounts, their checking accounts. And we do a lot of teen programming. We've really developed that. Since I was the assistant director, one of the things that I worked towards, we had a part-time Manomet branch librarian, and we were able to make her full-time. And I strongly advocated that we get a young adult librarian. So our current one, Jennifer Jones, has both roles. So, and we're working on a Teens and Tweens grant through Mass Board of Library Commissioners to try and make a little teen space as well as do more programming. I could go on and on.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
Okay, but some of my big stuff is recently we've collaborated with the Spire. We did the history of jazz, and Johnny Souza brought this idea to me. We did 3 major jazz programs. Eric Jackson, who is a radio host, well known throughout Massachusetts, he came and did 3 lectures, and then we had 3 programs, each for the era in jazz. We have collaborated with the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department and Quincy College to bring poetry into the correction facility as well as at the library, then do a whole readathon, and this was last October. So we did a bunch of fun, spooky stuff and did a whole day readathon, which is what we typically do at the end of near Halloween. I know we did, I'm spacing out right now. I've worked with the Plantation. We did a total of like a $15,000 grant with the Plantation and had Romeo and Juliet, One Play, One Community. And we did 1 year, we did Moby Dick and worked with New Bedford Whaling Museum. So we find something that is of interest.
A lot of outreach.
A lot of outreach.
Yeah, that's great.
And that is one thing that has increased is our collaboration throughout the community.
So how do you see your role in the last year? How has that changed somewhat?
So on top of that, one thing about being the library director is you get a ton of emails. I did not calculate how much time truly is spent in processing.
And Dinah was the director of community resources for the.
Yes.
She had other departments
She
too,
had
not
other
just
departments.
library. Yeah.
So that was the difference. So
Yeah.
she had me as the assistant library director,
Right.
and she handled the veterans and
Yeah.
Council on Aging,
Yeah.
the library, 1749 Courthouse, and Disabilities Commission. So having an assistant director allowed her the ability to do that.
Right.
When we then the town manager changed it when Dinah retired, and we brought back the library director, because really that was what my purpose is. I'm really driven as a public librarian. So then she brought in the recreation department, and that's how Barry de Blasio was brought in.
Right.
So our roles have changed.
Yeah.
He's overall, he watches facilities, staffing, supports the budgets. The library is in line. The library is 25 years old.
The new library.
The new library, which
People
is
still say that.
They
The
still
new
say
library.
that at 132 South Street. Please come and visit if you haven't.
Yeah.
But
And you also have a Manomet.
we have the
branch,
Manomet
too.
branch,
Yeah.
12 Strand Ave, and
Yeah.
that the corporation actually bought. It was Rockland Trust at the time, or Checkers Pizza. They renovated it. This was close to 15 years ago. And then they did the renovation, and then the town bought it from them. So it's a town-owned building and municipally funded.
Talk about the corporation a little bit.
Okay.
Is that the same as the trustees?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, talk about
So-
that. So talk about how the structure of that works.
Well, let me go back to when the new library came into being. Was the Board of Library Trustees is supported by the Plymouth Public Library Corporation. So it's a membership anyone can join. I think it's $10 per person or $20 for a family membership, and we highly encourage that. That's a great way to support the library. So from that group is the Board of Trustees is selected. It is not elected position, and it's not appointed by the town manager. And so what happens is we're able to find people who love the library and want to support it, do fundraising, and also they wear the policy hat. So if we're deciding on any kind of policy changes, we go to the Board of Trustees and we present a motion, and they will support it. Their goal is to support American Library Association, the Library Bill of Rights, of which freedom to read, freedom to speak is strongly supported. So there are 9 trustees and 4 officers. So that group is the one. There was a very forward-thinking Board of Trustees at the time. This was back in the late 80s, and they believed that we needed a new library that could support education throughout Plymouth. At the time, our education system was not as strong as it is now. And so it took 3 votes through the town to get the library approved through LSTA funding. I believe it was $6 million at the time. came through the federal funding, and then the town matched it, and so a bond was floated, and that's how the Board of Trustees bought the land out on South Street. Well,
From money that they raised.
their own money. It was $100,000. They bought that spot. Now remember, if those of you who know, the old library was owned by the corporation that was 11 North Street. It is now the Plymouth Art Guild.
Right, right.
And so everyone in town was very concerned that we were moving the library out to South Street. At the time, it was not that well developed. But look at it now. It's a hub in itself, being exit 5.
With the library really being the center
The
of it all.
library,
Yeah,
you have the police station built, and you have all the commerce out there. So they were very forward thinking.
Yeah.
Because, and I will say this, and I know it sounds very mundane, but we have a parking lot. We can handle over 100 cars, and that you would be amazed at how many libraries do not have that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we are a community center, and that is my goal as library director, is to continue
be
to
a
make sure
community
we're
center.
the spot people think about coming to.
That's great. You know, and this leads into this next question. You know, in this age of, you know, internet and Google and all that, I remember being, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, you know, some people were, when we were looking to do a new town hall, some people were saying, well, why don't we take over the library? You know, there's internet now that you can Google things. Why do you need a library?
Right.
How are libraries evolved? And talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think librarians have been ahead of the game all along. They knew, they used technology as it came in to being this new, when the new library was built, there wasn't the internet. So our computers were called dummy terminals. And then in the early 90s is when the internet came through, and so things were changed over. So we were already planning ahead to be what the public needed. So I think it was Bill Gates who had said years and years ago that at some point every household in America would have a computer, and that is not the case. So what the library becomes is a place for people who do not have computer access, or do not have internet access, it costs money, or do not have a printer. In 2009, when all the job loss that occurred, it was the library that people came to where they were able to work on their resumes and be able to submit or print out a resume because they didn't have access to what they had at work. That's just one portion. The other element is librarians are very aware of what is good information, what is true information, they vet the information, and we buy online databases. So when you come to the library, you can get access to Chilton's, which is famous automotive reference work. You can get access to what we call A to Z database. And I would encourage anyone who is trying to do any kind of research, come and talk to the reference librarians. We have so much more to offer you than just the top 10 hits that happens with Google. And Google's great, and don't think librarians don't use it. You know, we love it, and we use the analytics, and it is a gateway to information, but we spend a lot of money in supporting more advanced research. So,
I know when I worked across the street from you
Yes,
for 12 years at the now the Plymouth Rehab Nursing Home, no matter what time of day or night, I mean, the parking lot was always crowded.
Yeah.
No matter, you know, for that whole 12 years that I was there, always crowded.
we've had to share the parking
had to
lots.
share,
In
yeah,
fact,
exactly,
we've
yeah,
done a
yeah.
DPW day where we
Right.
take over the parking lot,
Yeah.
and kids and families can
Yeah.
come and see the kind of
Yeah.
machinery.
Yeah. So this show is about why the state matters to the
Okay.
local community. So let's talk
Okay.
about the state connection for you. And I know it's big for you. Talk about
Yes.
that and the funding and budgets and that stuff.
So I was appointed the Massachusetts Library, which is MLA, Association Legislative Committee. And this is where people across the state, they meet every either month or 2 months, and we plan how to get the message through to the State House about how important libraries, public school libraries, college academic libraries, how important they are to needing support from the state. And there are certain lines that are very important. First of all, you'll hear the word Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. They are the conduit where all federal money comes through and state money comes through and then is sent to the local libraries and towns. So that
Are
is
they
how
appointed, these commission?
the commissioners are appointed as
by
well
the
as there is a
governor, or?
staff. That's
Yeah,
a
it's
good
probably
question.
I think it's by the governor. Yeah,
By the
yeah,
governor,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then there's an actual staff, and
Yeah.
currently they are now being funded. They've been cut so much. They're now functioning at the FY 1998 level, and it's now FY 17. So 2017. So they're hurting. They keep doing more with less people, and that's a concern, number one. Number two, Plymouth specifically benefits from library, state aid to public libraries. So this is a different amount than the cherry sheet where state aid money goes to the town, which you're more familiar with. But for us, we have to hit certain marks, like we have to have a library director with an MLS. We have to be open a certain number of hours. We're open 63 hours per week between the two library branches. We have to provide network borrowing. We have to be willing to let our resources go to other libraries as well as other libraries' resources coming to us. So there's certain keynotes that we have to hit, and then we will qualify for state aid. So I'm very proud to say that in the past year we qualified for $60,000 to do the work that we do and the funding and support that the municipality, town of Plymouth, gives us. You know, we're close to $1.7 million annually.
And most of that comes from the town?
That comes from the town.
Yeah, okay.
60,000 from the state, and then on top of that, our board of Public Library Corporation gives us additional funding, and that's where we get the funding for programming. The town doesn't give us the programming money. They fund our salaries. They fund the building maintenance. You'd be amazed at what a structure, when it's built like that, it then has to be maintained. And I promise you, I know where every crack is, where everything needs to be fixed. And I hear complaints, you know, the public tells me, and I know, and I'm trying. We are in line for a new roof with new chillers on top. So that's very important. 25 years later, you need to support the facility.
It still looks like a great building, though.
People walk in, and I love it. But going back to the state, Massachusetts Library Association, so I'm on the legislative committee. Part of our activity, we do an annual Library Legislative Day at the State House. This year I was able, with my relationship with you, to ask you to be the host. So that's
Proud to be the host.
and I'm very thrilled. It's very, you know, it's moved me up in terms of my activities, which I also function at the Old Colony Library Network level. I'm on their legislative committee. So we had a very successful legislative breakfast. Basically what we do is try and
by the way,
explain.
you are elegant speaking there.
Thank you.
I mean, I was so impressed. A lot of people were. You just, it was from your heart, the way you were talking. A lot of people went up there with scripts and reading things, but you were from the heart talking. It was wonderful.
Well, it's so funny. Thank you. The commissioner, Mary Ann Kluggage, came in and she's like, you people aren't getting the words to legislators to get to the Ways and Means Committee. And then he went, oh no, I had forgotten to bring up Old Colony Library Network did a Miles to Reach You campaign, which we were involved in making sure. So I stood up and, you know, pleaded that case to make sure that she knew that we were doing that. So you're right. I can.
And I said something to her after that too, because this year alone, probably the most emails I have gotten at the State House have been from library people supporting the library. It's been constant throughout the year.
Excellent.
Yeah, so it really has been coming through, and you know that helps as a legislator. You know, it makes a difference when that's in the forefront of your mind, that all these people are looking for funding for whatever they're looking for. So advocacy really does work.
The library is used, over 200,000 people use it annually, and technology is really important for support and network resource sharing. So I can go on, but you just...
Well, I want to, in the few minutes we have left, I want to talk about one of my favorite programs there.
Okay.
Is the literacy program.
Okay.
Talk about that.
Please, and thank you. So one of the first things I did as library directors, we had to do a 5-year long-range plan that was submitted at Mass Board of Library Commissioners. We successfully completed that in 6 months, and number one goal is to provide classroom space within the main library for the literacy department.
How long ago was that?
So this was last year. We did the strategic plan. It's a goal number one this year. So right now, after Library Legislative Day, I will be jumping on that activity. We're in the process. We've had an analysis of how we can move things around. We're talking about moving the periodical section and kind of reallocating space, make it warmer and appealing in the reference area, and then take that space over and create 2 more classrooms. We receive $175,000 annually from from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to provide adult basic education. So we have 3 levels of classes. There's a preparatory level, there's actual level, and then there's when you're actually going for your high set or GED, your high school equivalency diploma. So we're required to provide 3 classes that go on simultaneously at the same time, so someone could start at the beginning, then work their way through. So our main goal, and we're putting in, we were donated by Mr. Lawrence Bongiovanni, some trust close to $250,000 towards literacy. He's the one who also gave us the money towards the Bongiovanni Music Room. The major renovation you folks who have come in seen is in our music room and circulation area. Well, he also donated that, so we will be looking at that as well as doing some fundraising to be able to outfit the classroom. But that is our major, that is goal number 1, and we got it written at the state level, and I'm so proud of the work that we did. So that's my next job. You know, with all this other stuff, summer programming coming up, our goal is to have it built this fall, so we're ready to open the classrooms in September.
How long has that literacy program been going?
Okay, it's been before, it was at the old library, so it's close to 26, 27 years.
That's just wonderful, yeah.
Isn't that
yeah,
fantastic?
It's a great program.
The teachers are so, their love is just shows right through.
Yeah, no, it's just, I love going to the graduation you have
The
at the
evening
end
of
the year.
recognition,
Yeah. The other great event you folks put on, I believe it's in November. It's the Taste of the Town.
The Taste of the Town, that's our annual.
What a great event that is, too. It's one of my favorite ones to attend.
We actually, may I mention our storybook breakfast is coming up. So this is really kids oriented, and it's at Plymouth South High School. It is March 11th, but it is our storybook characters, our junior friends wear the characters. The kids can come, there's a pancake breakfast, storytelling the whole time. This is our first year we will be able to give library cards at the new high school, and we have a very special event. We had new library cards designed, it's called My First Library Card, and they're adorable.
Nice,
So we want anyone who wants to come and get a new library card there.
I think I'm scheduled to read actually that morning.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
So,
that's great, yeah.
so there's that.
Great.
Taste of the Town is always, it's at the Plymouth Plantation, and our corporation does this major fundraising. 20 restaurants will come, they'll provide food for free, and it's a fabulous opportunity to support the library and the community.
Well, Jennifer, you do such a great job there. Very pleased that you're in that role. And,
Thank you.
You know, sometimes change is good, you know, because you have different set of eyes and different set of things you want to do, and you've been knocking it out of the park. So keep up the good work, and again, I'm there for you, whatever you need.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for joining me
Thank
today.
you.
I really appreciate that. So thank you all at home today for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this show and found it informative. I want to thank the staff and the volunteers here at PAC TV for another great show and for all they do for our community. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on State Matters.